The year is 1943. High above the Atlantic, a new breed of sea power takes wing. These are not merely machines. They are the heavy cavalry of a new age, venturing toward a rendezvous that will shift the tides of the Pacific. We are looking at the Grumman F6F Hellcat, a fighter forged specifically to answer the Japanese Zero. Unlike its predecessors, it carries the massive Pratt & Whitney double Wasp engine, 2,000 horsepower, encased in armor plating, designed not just to fly, but to take punishment and return home. Observe the flight deck, a floating airstrip pitching in the open sea. The coordination required here is a mechanical ballet. The Avengers and Helldivers, you see, are heavy with destruction, yet they leap from these short decks with a precision that defies gravity. What few realize is the engineering marvel of the hydraulic catapults and the folding wing mechanisms, innovations that allowed us to pack nearly 100 aircraft onto a single hull. This density of firepower was the surprise weapon the enemy never calculated. Now we ride with the pilot. These images, captured by the very gun cameras synced to the firing mechanism, offer a terrifyingly clear view of aerial warfare. Notice the tracers. Our pilots are trained to hold fire until the bullets converge at exactly 300 yards. This is the zone of lethality. Unlike the enemy, who often relies on maneuverability and light frames, our doctrine relies on heavy armor and the devastating, concentrated punch of 6 50-caliber machine guns tearing through airframes. The return trip is often the most perilous. The landing signal officer, the LSO, stands exposed on the stern, guiding these 5-ton birds onto a moving deck with nothing but colored paddles and nerve. It takes a unique breed of aviator to trust his life to a hook and a wire. The arresting gear engines below deck must absorb the kinetic energy of a crashing plane in mere seconds. It is a violent, controlled collision that happens dozens of times a day, turning the vast ocean into a precise airfield. This is the reality of the task force. We do not spray lead indiscriminately. We fire in bursts to conserve barrels and ammunition. As we push toward Kwajalein and beyond, the skies are clearing. Air superiority is not just about the pilot's skill, but about the rugged, relentless durability of American engineering.
Far aloft, over the Atlantic seaboard, one fine morning in 1943, an imposing force of American naval air power proceeds to an important rendezvous. This force is the aircraft complement of a new carrier: fighters, dive bombers, torpedo bombers. With the air group commander leading everyone, they are flying out to sea to join the ship which will be their floating home and fighting base. He is one of many carriers which the American people have built since Pearl Harbor to destroy the enemy in his own part of the world, far away. And there now is our base, powerful and serene. In honor of all American aircraft carriers, let us call her the Fighting Lady. Against a good solid wind with their tail hooks down, our planes come into the broad flight deck of their new home. In case the plane's hook fails to catch the arresting gear, there is a series of stout wire barriers. Number one man on the flight deck just now is the LSO, the landing signal officer, always a flyer himself. Like all aviators, he'd much rather be flying. Come on in and sit down. The plane is out of the groove and he waves it off. Come around another time, pilot, and we'll take you aboard. When planes land, they taxi quickly forward out of the way. Later, they'll have to be shifted to the stern and rearranged in proper position for takeoff. This is called respotting the deck. Here is our skipper, Jocko, a veteran Navy flyer. Annapolis, 1917. He is not impressed by our earnest efforts, nor the flight deck control officers. The skipper calls all hands together and gives us a piece of his mind.
We'll never be ready for combat unless you flight deck crews learn right now to work as a team. Don't you men realize that before long we'll be in dangerous waters? That's too slow. Bear a hand. Watch out. Keep that wing clear. Get it over to starboard. Way over to starboard. Come on, get the lead out of your pants. Now this is the way your deck should look when you're ready for action.
Our ship, our Fighting Lady, is enormous, wonderful, and strange to us. From stem to stern, the entire ship is a honeycomb of watertight and flame-proof compartments. Far below the waterline are engine rooms, fire rooms, fuel tanks, and magazines packed with enough assorted high explosive to blow us all to kingdom come. The hangar deck is like a gigantic tunnel, nearly 2 city blocks long and wide enough to house 4 freight trains abreast. It'll take us a week, a month maybe, to learn our way around. These new surroundings are as mysterious to us as they are cold and impersonal. Our Fighting Lady is like a huge floating cave, noisy and uncomfortable. Elevators as big as a tennis court carry us topside to the flight deck. The great superstructure rising amidships is called the island. This is truly the ship's nerve center, its fighting brain. 85% of us who make up the Fighting Lady's family are volunteers in this war and have never been to sea before. We learned our jobs theoretically in intensive training ashore. A very short while ago, we were high school boys and college kids, or bank clerks, or farm hands, or factory workers. Now we are blue jackets and Marines, all members of a naval combat team nearly 3,000 strong. In our multitude of new tasks and duties as a team, we're very green, but curiosity and comradeship and the instinct of self-preservation are great teachers. Some of us have to master the delicate and complicated instruments which control the fire of our 5-inch batteries, the guns that must defend the Fighting Lady when enemy dive bombers and torpedo planes attack. We train and train to learn our stuff and earn our E for efficiency. The Fighting Lady's destination is still a closely guarded secret, but no one can hide the fact that we're entering tropical waters. Our ship seems more friendly and comfortable now. We greenhorns feel that a suntan will at least make us look like fighting sailors. Even our mascot, Scrappy, has been at sea longer than most of us. Some of the mystery that has been hanging over us is lifted when we enter the Panama Canal. There is a lot of unprofessional nervousness about whether or not we're too big to get through the locks. By using lines instead of fenders, we do get through, as the naval constructors knew all along we would.
Come on, hop aboard. We're going places. For 2 cents, I would. Do anybody want to swap?
Now we stand out into the Pacific, and life aboard settles down into monotony. Here are our aircraft pilots, officers all. Ship's company call them the Glamour Boys. They are the men who fly and fight our planes. All the efforts of all the rest of us are concentrated on putting these people into the air and getting them back again. Most of us are hiding a certain amount of nervousness and anxiety, for many of us are Johnny-come-latelys, reserve officers who only recently learned to fly at Corpus Christi and Jacksonville. Others among us are specialists who trained at Quonset Point, Rhode Island. Reserves are called by the regulars, in a friendly way, 90-day wonders. In return, the Annapolis regulars are called the Trade School Boys. But whether Quonset or Annapolis, all are bound together in the fraternity, the close fellowship of Navy men. Among the ship's non-commissioned personnel, almost 3,000 blue jackets and 100 Marines, the hottest shots are the air crewmen, aerial gunners, and radio men. These boys and the plane captains are the partners of the Glamour Boys in the air. By non-flying blue jackets, they are called Zoom Pigeons or Airedales. And because they receive 50% extra pay for flying, they are sometimes referred to as the Bankroll Boys. Everybody aboard ship backs up the flying group. This requires the efforts of all manner of people. Many of the jobs are far from glamorous. All the little tasks and services you find along Main Street must be performed by some members of our carrier's crew. For though the Fighting Lady is a powerful ship of war, she is also a sizable American community, whose population must be supplied with all the necessities and some of the comforts of home. Doc Sorensen, the pharmacist mate, is just like a village druggist. And next door is our hospital called Sick Bay. It has only a few patients now, but soon it is to be filled with our wounded. Men like these who perform the humble jobs that make life aboard a fighting carrier more bearable, the barbers and the cobblers, are seldom mentioned in communiques. They all have a place in our fighting team. Weeks pass. Now we are far out into the Pacific, which is a very considerable body of water. Monotony shuts down on us between our duties. Guessing where we're bound is still our chief pastime. Will we put into Pearl? Are we going to Iron Bottom Bay? Or maybe even to the Aleutians? All such gossip and rumor are called scuttlebutt or drinking fountain conversation. Throughout the ship, men get together in little groups to take refuge from the heavy burden of waiting for something to happen. And then one day, out of nowhere, comes a fast fleet tanker, and we're refueled at sea. This tells us something. This tells us that we are not going to Pearl or any other land base for a long, long time. Besides our skipper, we have an admiral aboard, a sea dog who's been a naval flyer for nearly 20 years. Until now, only these officers have known where we are to go. But now Jocko, our captain, confers with the air group commander and reveals the plan. The Fighting Lady has been ordered to make a strike. She will pass through waters where no carrier task force has ventured since the bloody Battle of Midway. Remember, this is 1943, long before we took the Marshall Islands. Weather studies are made, and though this is a daily routine, somehow the whole ship senses that something is about to happen. Even before the news is broadcast to all of us, there's a new tension and atmosphere of expectancy. And then we are told, we have traveled more than 7,000 miles from Panama, so that tomorrow, August 30th, 1943, we can strike the Japanese base at Marcus Island, deep within the enemy's ring of defenses. evening before our first strike, the Air Group Commander briefs all his pilots with maps and a model of our target. We are sticking out our necks to within 1,000 miles of Tokyo to divert the Japs' attention from other American activities far south and east of Marcus. Those of us who have never before been in battle, that's most of us, ask a lot of questions of those who have seen action.
Rear seat gunners, don't break off until you're practically on the same course and right astern of the enemy. Then push over fast.
Outwardly, we try to seem composed and cheerful, but a lot's going on inside our minds. We question our most inner selves. What'll it be like? How'll we take it? Will we do all right? This is the night when a lot of boys write one more letter home. Among those playing acey-deucey in the wardroom is a chubby 23-year-old from Eureka Springs, Arkansas, Lieutenant E.T. Stover, nicknamed Smokey. That's he sitting on the far right. Having flown 50 missions at Guadalcanal, Smokey has been ordered to take a rest. He'd much rather be flying. Before dark on the eve of battle, our planes are loaded with bombs and gas. So that each plane will be in its precise position for a speedy takeoff, we spot and respot our deck. Now all is perfect. We will strike at dawn. And now GQ, General Quarters. Every man on the ship goes to his battle station, his special place on the fighting team. George, the barber, will pass ammunition. Leo, the baker, will be a sky lookout. Frank, the tailor, is assigned to a first aid station. Pilots are in their ready rooms. Each squadron, fighter, bomber, torpedo bomber, assemble separately. Flyers get into their flight gear and receive last-minute data and instructions. On the flight deck, our first battle dawn awaits us. Our whole ship is on hair trigger. The Fighting Lady is hardly 100 miles from the first target of her career. These last few minutes before the order for our first action are the toughest time of all. A wise man once said, "War is mostly waiting." We learn now what that can mean. At last the word comes.
Pilots, man your planes.
Ready room 3, roger. Pilots, man your planes.
Fighters take off first to form cover aloft for the other squadrons. Then the bombers, heavy laden with destruction. The sun has risen now, and our escorts are alert for enemy submarines. But the Fighting Lady steams boldly toward our target to lessen the distance for our planes when they return. The radio plotting room is the electric eye and ear by which the Fighting Lady detects and keeps tab on all planes and ships for miles around us. Smokey, the fighting ace from Arkansas, has been put in charge of this room for our big day. Hunched among his assistants, Smokey is like a super quarterback on a super football team. He is in constant touch with our entire air group. As our first fighters race in toward Marcus Island, they stay low, hoping to escape detection by the enemy's radar. Then they climb suddenly and dive, a surprise strafing attack on the enemy's airstrips. These red balls floating up at us so lazily are anti-aircraft fire. There is 3 times as much of it coming up at us as we can see, because only 1 shell in 3 is a tracer. What look like fiery polywogs are tracers from our own wing guns. The AK is much heavier than expected, but through it we go to knock out enemy bombers on the ground. All through these battle pictures, realize that we are looking straight down our own gun barrels. These pictures are taken automatically by the same mechanism that operates the guns. Pictures even shake with the gun's recoil. Our eye is now the very eye of our fighting airplane. The enemy's picket boats and supply ships offshore are thoroughly strafed. No longer will these craft bring rice and sake and munitions to Marcus. Our bombers flying higher see the island beginning to burn. A moment ago, it looked like a little jade trinket in a cobalt sea. As the fighters and bombers swing victoriously away from Marcus Island, towering columns of smoke show the thorough job our boys have done. Back aboard ship, Smokey is tracking the flyers with care to be sure that none is missing and that no enemy planes are trying to follow them out to our fighting lady. As our planes come aboard, there begins an operation almost as exciting as the attack itself. A ballet after battle, with the plane directors as dancing masters. The whirling propellers fill this scene with danger, but now our crews are trained. The landing signal officer performs an eloquent adagio on the fighting lady's stern, warning to the rest of the cast to stay off stage until a limping member can be led out of the way. Pilots go below to report to their combat intelligence officers. They have hot news, good news. They tell what they saw and did, how many rounds of ammunition they fired, how many bombs they dropped, what they hit, what they noticed at the target that was new and different or that may need hitting again. As the reports are added up and our combat photographers develop their pictures, the story becomes better and better. Every single bomber on Marcus has been destroyed. 80% of the shore installations blasted or set afire. Hangars, radio stations, gas dumps, ammunition dumps. Marcus is now a lovely mess. In the radio plot, Smokey is worried. There are planes still up there and he's wondering about them. They are ours, though, delayed by battle damage. Landing a shot-up plane on the carrier is a crucial test of how well-trained, how alert and steady a naval flyer is. fighting lady now has met her enemy. And in the wardroom, the pilots who this morning felt new and nervous now talk like veterans. We have been baptized by fire and have survived nicely. We of the fighting lady are growing up. The admiral of our task force knows the overall strategy of the whole Pacific campaign: to smash straight through Japan's outer network of islands, to recapture the Philippines and land on the mainland of Asia. Thus we will deny Japan supplies from Malaya and the Dutch East Indies and leave her far-flung island garrisons marooned. Then we will reach out and really help our ally China. Months after Marcus, this campaign is well started. Our carrier task forces have been in many battles. And now, early in 1944, the fighting lady's target is Kwajalein in the Marshall Islands. These are Zeros, fighter screen being pierced by our planes and planes from 8 other carriers, preparatory to strafing Kwajalein and bombing it apart. Our fighter pilots have improved with practice, with the confidence that comes from experience. They estimate their range by watching their tracers. They hold their fire until their wing gun bullets converge at 300 yards. They shoot in bursts instead of in steady streams, which heat up the guns and spend ammunition. Soon have Kwajalein burning very satisfactorily. After our bombing attacks and heavy shelling by our surface ships, assault craft filled with Marines and Army hit the beaches. And very soon after that, Kwajalein is ours. Right after Kwajalein, word comes to our admiral that at Truk, Japan's huge and secret naval fortress 1,400 miles to the west, there apparently are some heavy units of the Japanese battle fleet. Perhaps we can surprise them. Again, the Fighting Ladies Squadron and squadrons from other carriers take off for combat. A lot of mouths are dry at the thought that our target is mighty Truk. The rear seat gunners look back at the Fighting Lady, wondering when and if they will ever return to her. All that we know about Truk, we know from a few photographs taken by some nervy Marines on reconnaissance just 18 days ago. We hear that it is a complex of heavily fortified islands surrounded by airstrips, with naval anchorages at certain spots among the islands. For the next 2 days, more than 1,000 of our carrier-based planes are going to sweep in on Truk in relays. The planes appear to float gently off our bow. Actually, their airspeed is a good 70 knots. Diving in on Truk, we again turn on our guns and their synchronized cameras. Truk's defenders are aloft and we smack them hard. Hearts that were in men's mouths before this strike began now settle back into place and are singing once more. There's something really grand, something historic about diving in here on this place which Japan has been building and guarding jealously from all the Japanese eyes for 20 years. We dive right in low and take a good look at fighter strips, bomber bases, and seaplane ramps. In an almost vertical dive, the pilot may black out or go blind for a moment when he pulls up and out at the bottom. But the camera won't black out. It cannot see the landing of our own bomb, for we'll be up and away before that reaches the target. But it records the hits of other planes ahead of us. We'd hoped to find the fleet here, but most of it's gone. Some lingering ships, including some of their fast fleet tankers, we find hiding in sheltered coves. The vessels which we are now strafing are other fleet auxiliaries, rice boats, transports, and ammunition ships. With bursts of 50 caliber incendiaries and armor-piercing slugs, we set them on fire, rip them open, often wide enough to sink. Strafing ships filled with TNT is not very healthy for pilots who dive too low. But it's hard to tell who's carrying what until the big bang comes. Returning to the deck at 130 miles an hour with a flap shot away, all a pilot can hope to save is his own skin. Here comes our new air group commander. He's had a bit of trouble. His windshield is blotted with blood and he has to feel his way aboard. Strafing at low altitude, he took a 40-millimeter anti-aircraft burst right in the face. More than 200 wounds, and his plane a sieve. But he'll live to fly again. Some planes will not return, but others come back and land somehow, anyhow. Considering the toughness of Truk, our losses are astonishingly light. No time is lost getting casualties below. It's a long way from Truk to our secret rendezvous in the Marshall Islands. Someday it can be told just where this is. Actually, it is a magnificent new fleet anchorage, an advanced naval base, which we have taken from the Japanese and made secure. Now, for the first time, we, who have been operating as separate, relatively small task forces, see assembled the enormous mass of naval power. Over 1 million tons of American fighting steel. New carriers, new battleships, new cruisers and fleet auxiliaries in an amount which Japan could never conceive, let alone produce. That we are able to maintain supply lines over the vast distances of the Pacific is one of the miracles of this war. In the comforting presence of so much power, we relax and refresh our battle-strained nerves.
Pushing my head under. Hey, Benny, when you gonna die? Who taught you to swim? Hey! Benny. Boy.
Our ship's post office now does really big business. Letters for us at last from home. Letters from us to friends and families. Our censors know our collective mood, our central hopes and thoughts.
The stuff is really getting out here now.
I can't tell you much about it, but oh boy. And the more we get, well, the sooner I'll be seeing you.
All hands are called together. Our old skipper, Jocko, has been promoted admiral. Our new one's name is Dixie.
Men, as soon as I finish talking, we are getting underway. Our fighting lady is now part of what is designated Task Force 58. As you know, our final destination is a place called Tokyo. We'll have to fight hard to get there, but when we drop our hook at Yokohama, I'm going to throw a party. All hands are cordially invited.
Our task forces are built compactly now around carriers like ourselves, with speedy new battle wagons at our side. A carrier skipper never leaves the bridge at sea, because carriers and their planes are the first to strike the enemy or to be struck by him. Our aircraft pilots are constantly on call, for despite the massive power spread out around us, these are still dangerous waters. Our pilots know this all too well, but it doesn't worry them now, for they're seasoned. They know how. There are a lot of new faces among us, but most of these men, too, have been in action. At places like Hollandia, Mille, Jaluit, Palau, Rabaul, Wake, Meloilap. Our rear seat gunners and radio men are old hands now. Some of their faces are different, too, because there have been replacements. A lot of them have been made commissioned officers. There's a saying in the Navy that you never learn to love a carrier until she gets hurt. Well, perhaps we don't really love our fighting lady, but we've become mighty fond of her and almost comfortable, almost at home. Occasionally, our shipboard movies bring us that one thing we crave the most, one touch of something utterly American, one deep breath of home. Like Jocko, our new skipper, Dixie, is an old hell-diving Navy pilot. In their battle caps, he and Admiral Mitcher look like big league baseball managers. Northwest we steam, and never before in history has an ocean borne such a weight of naval power. Not at Jutland, not at Japan's proud boast Tsushima was there anywhere near the force with which we now assert that this is our ocean. This is our air, and we're seeking the Japanese battle fleet to prove it. With our cruisers and our biggest new battle wagons present, we are strong enough to hope, really to hope, that we may provoke the Japanese fleet into accepting a fight. We're joined by plotting Coast Guard and Navy transports. The Marines again. So another amphibious assault is cooking. Our patrols have spotted an enemy search plane and are after her. She's a big bird. 20-ton, four-motored Kawanishi seaplane. the kind we call Emily's. Miss Emily's a tough old girl. Right now she's screaming for help and telling Tokyo by radio where we are. Hellcats are closing in on her. So long, Emily. Now that the enemy knows where we are, and we know he knows, our brass hats get together on final arrangements for what may turn into another Midway. Our objective, the first of many in our drive through to the Philippines and China, will be the Marianas. In battles just ahead of us, we are to make good use of a multitude of weapons, special devices, and techniques which have been evolved through the 30 years since the U.S. Navy first took to the air. Not only did our naval flyers create the aircraft carrier itself, but it was they who devised the torpedo plane and invented and perfected dive bombing. Disposed about our flight decks so that planes can be quickly armed are all manner of death-dealing objects. 500, 1,000, and 2,000-pound bombs. We have torpedoes and incendiaries, and a kind of anti-personnel bombs we call daisy cutters. Some of our bombs are armor-piercing, some for fragmentation. Others have delayed action fuses to prolong the effect of our bombardment for hours after we have delivered it. Here are the new rockets, which pack the same wallop as a 3-inch shell. They weigh little, and because there isn't much recoil, they can be fired from planes. On the eve of battle, we are told to scrub up to lessen the danger of infection in case we're wounded. As well as our bodies, most of us prepare our souls. Always on the eve of battle, divine services are held in relays, so that every one of our fighting ladies' 3,000 sons has a chance to attend. As the eve before battle lengthens, there is the usual waiting. Again, we're reminded that war is mostly waiting. Because all cooks and bakers must soon be at their battle stations, they work all night long preparing a hearty meal of steak and eggs for our 3 a.m. battle breakfast. We are being attacked. All they want is one hit on our flight deck. We have nearly 90 planes fueled and loaded with bombs, ready for the takeoff. Each patch of flame is a burning jack. this surprise attack, 19 Japanese are polished off by our ship's batteries. Not a single carrier is hit. We have been fortunate. So now commences another major moment in the Fighting Lady's career. Flight quarters sounds. In this modern warfare, the young plane captains are to their pilots what squires were to armored knights of old. In this operation, typical of many more to come, a lot of other fighting ladies will be involved. And nearly 2,000 carrier-based planes, all of them attacking in air groups like our own. From now on, we tighten our belts and steady our hands as our Navy makes progressively bigger attacks nearer and nearer the heart of Japan. At his post and radio plot, tracking down enemy planes and cursing the luck that keeps him out of the air, Smokey chafes at being grounded on a day like this, especially when targets are juicy ones. All the Japanese air bases and military installations in the Marianas, and a special prize package, Guam, the island which we did not fortify, but the Japanese did. Now comes word that the Japanese have sent strong air reinforcements to Tinian, which flanks Guam. Again, our synchronized cameras record, as no human eye and memory could record, just what our guns and bombs do to the enemy. These pictures enable our air combat intelligence officers to assess the damage as we swoop down upon Tinian. While our planes return for more fuel and ammunition, the surface vessels take over. A prodigious naval barrage to prepare the beaches our assault forces are going to hit. Not only our newest, but some of our oldest and proudest battleships are here. The Colorado, the Tennessee, and the USS Pennsylvania, flagship of World War I. Winging home to the Fighting Lady, several of our planes, crippled, make a game attempt to land. Now is when the landing signal officer must judge not only the speed, but estimate the battle damage of planes like these. And flight deck emergency crews, firefighters, rescue details, and medical corpsmen exhibit almost incredible courage. pilot of a torpedo plane has been unable to release his load of incendiaries. Burning thermite is spilling out at incandescent heat. In the plane's tanks remain about 75 gallons of high-octane gas. The men who brave this danger to save pilot and crew deserve every citation they get. In the ready rooms, intelligence officers question battle-weary pilots. What did you see? Any carriers in sight? Are you sure they were carrier-based planes? Then from radio plot comes uncomfortable news. Torpedo planes and dive bombers from enemy aircraft carriers are approaching. All hands, man your battle stations. To our engine room go orders for flank speed, which is a few knots faster than full speed, in case we need to take evasive action. All boilers are lighted to let the fighting lady outdo herself if necessary. The engine room people turn on the heat, and the propeller shafts churn like fate in their alleys. The fighting lady leaps through the sea on her guard. Skipper Dixie gears himself for action, and so does wise old Scrappy. And now, here they come. Jill, torpedo bomber, miraculously keeps coming through our wall of flak. She's approaching us fast with a life that must be charmed. Our gunners throw everything they've got, but still she comes. If he ever releases that torpedo, she missed us. Either the pilot was already dead or his release gear jammed. When Smokey, the pride of Arkansas, hears about that one, he almost takes off. Now our reconnaissance has spotted the Japanese task forces. This is the moment we've been fighting and praying for. Every plane that can fly and every qualified pilot is ordered into the air. At last, Smokey gets his chance to fly again.
Pilots, man your planes. Pilots, man your planes.
Philippine trade wind is tearing down our flight deck. Our planes strain forward to rise into it. Our entire air group thunders out behind the group commander. Now our fighters run into a smoke fighters, mostly Zeros, sent up to intercept our attack on the Japanese fleet. A mad aerial scramble begins, which the boys to this day still call the Marianas turkey shoot. 369 planes are shot down in this single day, to our loss of 22. Japanese plane makers have sacrificed strength and firepower for agility. Their planes disintegrate quickly when you hit them. They have no armor plate, as ours have, nor are their gas tanks self-sealing. These little monkeys are fancy flyers. They think aerobatics can win dogfights, whereas we believe in smooth flying and careful shooting. And now, at last, through a late afternoon haze from high altitude, our air combat group sights the Imperial Japanese battle fleet. These are the first pictures ever taken of a great enemy naval formation like this. There it is, that Imperial fleet, crawling around below us in violent evasive action. Us looking down on them in the seas they think they own. Some of these Japanese ships are scampering away at better than 40 knots. When you bore straight down on them, they twist, squirm. Engage a big destroyer at the bow, hoping to shoot out his bridge. And he shoots back plenty. Let's go down after that cruiser. He answers us emphatically from the forward turret. Now a 25,000-ton carrier of the Hayataka class is going to get it. Watch 5 o'clock in the camera, the lower right-hand corner of the screen. This big flat top gets it where the turkey got the axe. Touch off some of these babies. Just watch this one. And now we come home from the Battle of the Philippine Sea. 17 warships have been sunk or severely damaged. Several of our returning planes have been badly shot up. A dive bomber comes in out of gas. He pulls off to starboard but noses over because his wheels are down. This pilot has 73 holes in his plane, and his leg almost shot away. To clear the deck for other planes, number 30, badly damaged, is jettisoned. given the deep 6. Watch carefully. This man's controls are all but shot away. He steps out of it, smiling. And now it is time to paint up the scores. On this fine morning, just a year after being commissioned, the Fighting Lady is beginning to look like a stamp album. She has done her share, amassing Task Force 58's grand total of 757 aircraft destroyed in a 2-week turkey shoot. But there's another score to add up. Our own casualties. Quite a few faces are no longer with us on the Fighting Lady. Among them, Commander Upson, skipper of our torpedo squadron. Lieutenant Pappy Condit. Lieutenant John Meehan. And that fightingest gentleman, Lieutenant Smokey Stover. Yes, Smokey's missing too. Salute them under their country's flag. For they were brave. They were gallant. Others will come forward to take their places. For the battles we have fought on the seas and in the sky are only the beginning. Still hungry for battle will steam our carrier. Serene, powerful, unafraid. She and her planes will come home again someday, God grant, but not until the bitter, glorious end. For she is, and we salute her, the Fighting Lady.
From the newly won islands of the Marianas, a new kind of thunder rolls across the Pacific. These are the super fortresses, the B-29s. Watch them, silver giants rising from the runways, bound for the very heart of the enemy. High in the stratosphere, our boys are now delivering a message of fire and steel, directly to Tokyo's war machine. But the long road to Tokyo is also paved on the decks of our great carriers, the floating fortresses of the fleet. From these steel islands rise our naval wings, the champions of the sky, sweeping the enemy from the air. They are the hunters, protecting our fleet, engaging in furious combat high above the blue Pacific, clearing the way for the inevitable advance. Now, in these final desperate days, the enemy has unleashed a fanatical new weapon, the kamikaze, a desperate suicidal lunge against our fleet. They come in low, they come in fast, with only one target in mind, our ships. But they are met with a wall of American steel. Look at that screen of fire. Our gunners, men from every state back home, stand by their guns. From the heavy 5-inch batteries to the rapid-fire cannons that line every rail. They throw up a curtain of flak so thick, it seems no man could possibly fly through it. We are using every tool at our disposal, making every shell count in this terrible, necessary business. Our boys will not falter. They will hold the line. From the high-altitude raids of our super fortresses to the furious battles at sea, every arm of our mighty force is working as one. The enemy is surrounded. His navy is at the bottom of the sea. His air force is shattered. There can be, and will be, only one end to this: total victory. The road is hard. The cost is high. But we will finish this job.
For every ship the enemy sinks, our shipyards back home have already launched 10 more. For every plane he sends on a one-way mission, our factories are rolling out 100 new fighters, 1,000 new bombers. The industrial might of a free world is a torrent that he cannot stop. He cannot even slow.
Our fleets now sail where they please. Our air forces command the skies, sweeping away the last remnants of his power. The islands we've taken, hard fought and paid for in American courage, are now the unsinkable airfields, pointing like a dagger at his homeland. There is only the unconditional surrender of a defeated foe.
Well, now we know where we're going.
Did you get that about those snakes?
How did the skipper say it? Okie.
I heard him. He said Okinawa.
You know, they say this place looks like the country around Frisco.
They don't like it up in San Francisco, and you call it Frisco. Spent my honeymoon up there. Drove up from L.A. Made it in 8 hours. 400 miles.
8 hours? What was holding you back? I used to make it from Buffalo to New York in 6 flat. That's 370 miles with hills.
370 miles. Why, right here we're closer to Japan than that. We're just 325 miles from their home office.
325 miles?
You heard him. That's what the old man said.
325 miles. Why, that's closer than Milwaukee to St. Louis. I always felt pretty safe in St. Louis. It's awfully close. Mighty close.
Yes, mighty close. Especially for a modern bomber with a job to do. But here we were, closer than any fleet in history to a major land-based air power. At Midway, in the Coral Sea, even in the Marianas, distance had been against the Japanese Air Force. But now, as our fleet sailed against the enemy inner islands, the range was easy for any plane that could fly. There were those who said no fleet could risk it, but the stakes were high. With Okinawa in our hands, we could control the China coast, send swarms of planes to smother Japan. We were reaching for the throat of an empire. The risk must be taken. On the island of Okinawa, 5,000 miles from San Francisco, the earth shook from a fearful pounding by our ships and planes. To the south, our British allies were hurling their naval might at the bypassed fortress of Formosa. They were raking Sakashima with shell and bomb. England's greatest battleships and newest carriers were there, screening us on the south, paying off with pleasure an old debt to Nippon. On the northern flank, Admiral Mark A. Mitcher's tireless Task Force 58 stepped up its 2 weeks old aerial assault on Kyushu and the enemy home islands. It was the 4th of July in reverse on Japanese shipping, harbors, airfields, factories. Men of the Navy, 400,000 men, called it Love Day. Elsewhere in the world, it was Easter Sunday, 1945. At 8:30 that morning, the Marines and the Army went in. "100,000 Yanks were rattling the lock on Japan's front door. They were plowing sacred soil with American boots, tractors, tanks. The first 7 days were battling, mysteriously quiet. Ashore, Army and Marines pushed steadily forward, looking for an enemy which had vanished. On the 1,400 ships supporting the invasion, men waited at their battle stations and waited. We knew the blow would come, but how and when? Then it struck. They call it kamikaze, meaning the divine tempest. We call them suicide planes, manned by pilots wearing the ceremonial red sash of the kamikaze corps. They specialize in one-way trips. Their destination, the deck or hull of any American ship onto which plane, bombs, burning gasoline, and red-sashed pilot can crash. Japan's secret weapon was no secret to our gunners or our flyers, who for months had been tinting the far Pacific with those same red sashes. But now, to meet our latest challenge, our deepest thrust, there rose every plane that could fly, new or old, from the very heart of Japan itself. 16-year-olds, still in aviation schools, were given their wings, a sash, and a mission. It was a maniacal, all-out effort to smash our sea power, isolate our troops on Okinawa. It was desperation. It was suicide. But it would be the pattern from now on to the very finish. A struggle between men who want to die and men who fight to live. He's hit, but he's still heading for the target. Missed. By night it went on. Hundreds of land-based planes streaked low over the sea at our carrier. They dove out of the dawn, raced through dull overcast to throw themselves in screaming, smoking fury at Admiral Richmond Kelly Turner's ships off Okinawa. Again, the old battleships were there, and new ships of the line. And a rugged little man named Ernie Pyle. There was no retreat. This was the fleet that came to stay, that had to stay. Had to stay because the men that the Navy landed needed tons of steel from Navy guns. Even as we beat off fresh waves of planes overhead, the big guns of the fleet smashed enemy strongholds miles away. Had to stay because our men advancing through the rice paddies and over the steep ridges had to have close air support from the baby flat top. In the air control room aboard the command ship, strike upon strike was ordered. Then the Navy and Marine flyers laid down precise, deadly rocket fire to help make the next 50 yards of advance less costly. This was the fleet that had to stay because always the stream of supplies to those troops must be steady and few. A bridge of ships was thrown across the Pacific to bring our men more food, more medicine, more ammunition. And waiting at the end of the longest supply route in any war were the kamikaze. It was weird. It was savage. This was a fleet fighting like infantry, punching away at the enemy. Only there are no foxholes in the ocean.
March 18th to the 21st, 556 Japanese planes destroyed.
Men fought without sleep. Some fought with guns. Some with axes, torches. Some with fire-smothering foam. It was fix and fight at the same time. Don't Give Up the Ship became more than a schoolbook legend. It became a fact of life. April 13th brought more planes and shocking news. Between attacks, weary men, afloat and ashore, paid honor to the beloved figure in the blue Navy cloak, said farewell to the father of the modern American Navy. Then they turned and met the next assault. During 3 fabulous months, thousands of aircraft were hurled against our ships. But only 10% ever slipped through our air patrol. Yet the siege by air went on. The Japanese beast still spat zeros.
April 6th, 277 enemy planes shot down. April 12th, 100 planes. May 3rd, 97.
In the early gray hours of the morning watch on May 9th, the great news came. VE Day in Europe. It came first to the lookouts, to the men who stand guard while the others sleep. Men were glad and grateful. Home seemed a little nearer. But for now, VE Day was simply the 1,247th day of our Pacific War. From the rolling decks of our carriers, the fighters rose once again to intercept the enemy. On the cruisers and destroyers and battleships, our heavy batteries once more leveled against studded hills of Okinawa. The barking 20s and 40s sent streams of fiery lead into the world's last alien sky. For week after vicious week, the most devastating air-sea battle of all time wore on. The Japanese paid with their Air Force, with their newest ships, 4,232 planes. The fleet that came to stay paid a price too. But our men, our ships, our planes took everything the land could throw at the sea and handed it back double. The question, could a fleet stand up against the massed fury of land-based planes, got an emphatic answer from the men who fight to live, from the fleet that came to stay.
The kamikaze corps was really active. I mean, they were after our fleet like crazy. The ship's gunners ate and slept practically with their gun mounts, and because there was a bogey on the screen, you know, it seemed like day and night. Well, then I did a wing over to see what happened to this other one, and it was heading for this field that we had just kind of damaged, you know, then. So I poured full throttle to the Hellcat, and it responded well. And just as I was ready to pull the trigger, I reasoned and said, hollering, "Don, get out of there, they're shooting at you from the shore batteries." But I squeezed the trigger anyway, and that one exploded. So that was my first air-to-air kills of the war.
You're being attacked.
For Don McPherson, the youngest of 7 children who endured the Great Depression working their Nebraska family farm, the journey into the wild blue yonder as an ensign in the Blue Water Navy was as swift as it was unexpected. He was only 16 years old when he graduated from high school in Adams, Nebraska in 1939.
And of course we had to register for the draft at age 18. So after I'd registered, then I started thinking, well, now, do I just let them draft me, or what should I decide to do?
When the United States declared that a state of war had existed between it and the Japanese Empire since the attack on Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, on December 7, 1941, the lives, plans, and dreams of an entire generation were put on hold. Suddenly, the future could no longer be taken for granted. Now it would have to be won.
I'd already decided to go Navy because I had an older brother that was already in the Navy. And so that part was settled, but about that time in the news, the Navy came out with the idea that they were starting what they called a V5 program. And if you could pass a mental and a physical examination, then you could learn to fly through this V5 program. So fiance and I talked it over, and I decided that's what I wanted to do. So then the thing I had to do was convince my folks, because they thought flying was really a dangerous occupation. I joined the military in September of 1942.
The V5 Naval Aviation Cadet Program Don McPherson entered was first established by Congress on April 15, 1935. Originally, it required candidates to be between the ages of 19 and 25, have an associate's degree or 2 years of college, complete a bachelor's degree within 6 years of being commissioned, remain single until after graduation, and serve 3 additional years of active duty. During World War II, Navy pilot training had to ramp up rapidly, so the V5 program was modified. Candidates who passed a test could now enter the program without the college requirement and complete their academics during a rigorous 18-month training program. Don knew he wanted to fly, but there was some family resistance.
my mother says, but it's just so dangerous. I hate to see you do that. And I said, well, Mom, you know, I'm going to serve my country. And I think I'd rather do it from the seat of an airplane rather than from a foxhole. So that did it then, so.
The Navy flight training program had the same stages as the Army program: pre-flight, primary, basic, and advanced. But it added a carrier landing stage for fighter and torpedo or dive bomber pilots.
In this V5 program, they moved you every 3 months. The Navy took over part of these colleges because their male enrollment was so down, you know. And so I started out in Mount Vernon, Iowa, with Cornell College, and that's where I spent my first 3 months. And so we started out flying Cubs, Tailorcrafts, Arancas, those types of planes. And I was lucky enough, I don't know why, but I happened to be the first one in our group to solo. I found out that the idea was that the first guy that solos gets dumped into the irrigation canal. There were bits of ice floating in the canal, so it didn't take me long to get out of there. The next base then was Norman, Oklahoma. They'd taken over a portion of University of Oklahoma. And there then we flew the Stearman. That's how we learned aerobatics in it. And we also, what they called the SNV. So that was kind of an upgrade as far as power was concerned.
The SNV, built by Vultee Aircraft, was used as an intermediate trainer for naval aviators during World War II. The SNV introduced students to a more powerful Pratt & Whitney R985 engine. It incorporated two-way radio communication, manually operated flaps, and a variable pitch two-blade propeller, a major step in preparing students to advance to more complicated, higher performance aircraft. Its annoying harmonics and rattling caused students to nickname it the Vultee vibrator.
Well, after the 3 months there, then we went to Corpus Christi, and that was our final squadron. And most of the time there then we were flying the SNJ, or what the Air Force called the Texan. And of course it was equipped like the Navy. It had the tail hook and those things.
You. And you. And the guy sitting next to you. And you, and you, and you. Every man in gunnery school must want to be a gunner. He must want his badge of courage and skill. The gunner's wings, which prove him a flying fighter.
World War II fighter pilots had to multitask, to say the least. In addition to flying the airplane, often victory and survival depended on their shooting skills. They spent hours training for deflection shooting, considering wind, aircraft speed, and other factors in order to lead the target, learning the mechanics of their guns and shooting at aerial targets towed by fellow pilots.
All this time then we were taking pistol shooting, rifle shooting. We got into shotgun, skeet and trap shooting to teach us lead deflection, those type of things. I even messed around with the 30 caliber machine gun some, had to take one apart and put it back together. And so they were making our studies, really in depth. And so then as we progressed in the SNJ to fly wing on another person, and even formation takeoffs and that type of thing. And then it just kept progressing to where then we were actually shooting plane guns, at a target on the ground. They'd go up and they'd tow a nylon sleeve behind another plane, and we'd shoot at that, to get lead-in deflection and those type of things.
Don McPherson earned his commission in wings at Corpus Christi, Texas on August 12, 1944. The farm boy from Nebraska had become a United States naval aviator.
You couldn't be married while you're in cadet training, so my wife came down to Corpus Christi to my graduation, and we thought we'd get to go home, so we'd get married at home. And that didn't happen. They had orders cut for me already to go Daytona Beach to fly the F6F Hellcat.
The Grumman F6F Hellcat was the United States Navy's dominant fighter in the Pacific theater of war. Between 1942 and 1945, 12,275 Hellcats were produced at a unit cost of $35,045 each.
The only plane that I flew in combat was the Hellcat, and it's a dandy. It had a 19-to-1 kill ratio. I don't want to discount the Corsair. The Corsair was good too. It had a 17-to-1 kill ratio. I read somewhere along the line that a really large percentage of the aces of the World War II were Hellcat pilots.
Though the Vought F4U Corsair shared the same power plant as the Hellcat, the 2,000 horsepower Pratt & Whitney R2800 Double Wasp, it was actually faster. It was a legendary fighter in the Pacific theater in its own right. Its unique sound caused the Japanese to nickname it Whistling Death. But the Corsair had operational difficulties on board aircraft carriers. It achieved prominence as a land-based fighter flown by the Marines.
We had to go to Great Lakes to check out carrier landings. They had two old luxury liners that they'd put flight decks on.
The Wolverine, formerly the Lake Steamer C&B, has been converted for training purposes. Before the war, the Wolverine, a coal-burning side-wheeler, plied the stormy Great Lakes waters. Thousands of holiday passengers paraded her decks. Now she serves a grimmer purpose, training fighter pilots for all-out sky battle.
And one of them had been an old paddle wheel job that they put a flight deck on, and it couldn't move a hood of the water worth of a hoot. But so you had to have at least a 25-mile-an-hour wind over the deck in order to land on it. And they were a lot smaller than the regular carriers were.
When Pearl Harbor was attacked on December 7, 1941, there were 6,000 sailors training at the Great Lakes Naval Training Center on the shores of Lake Michigan in northeastern Illinois. By September, there were over 100,000. Between 1942 and 1945, over 15,000 naval aviators were trained for carrier landings on Lake Michigan. Two retired passenger ships, renamed Wolverine and Sable, were converted into mock carriers. Neither had armor or weaponry. It took almost $2 million and 1,200 workers to transform the opulent upper decks of the Wolverine into a 535-foot runway. The converted runways were more than 250 feet shy of those on real carriers. Those short runways, combined with the lake winds, occasional waterspouts, and poor visibility due to smoke from the ship's engines, made difficult landings even tougher. Roughly 150 planes crashed, and at least one pilot froze to death in the water.
They took us out the first day by boat, and we stayed aboard all day in that carrier, watching others land and qualify. And the skipper of that ship was a pistol. I mean, he had a bullhorn, and anybody that made kind of a rough landing, well, then he was telling them off, with that loudspeaker thing. They sent us out the next day, and I qualified aboard the other one and got my 8 landings in. So then I did get to go home then for a 10-day leave, and they already had my orders cut for San Diego for deployment. When we went into the channel, Pearl Harbor, it was really a shock. I mean, it was just like a junkyard. They dredged all these blown-up ships, up on the sides, and twisted rusty metal everywhere, so you can really realize what had happened there. And we stayed then in the barracks on Ford Island. And I could look out my bunker window and see that battleship that they made the shrine out of was sitting on the bottom was just a little bit of the mess sticking up out of the water. I didn't get to stay with my unit the 3 months because Air Group 83 had formed in the States, and then they were finishing training as an air group on the island of Maui, and they lost a pilot in carrier landings, got killed in carrier landings. Somehow my name got pulled out of the hat, and I was flown over there, and when I got over there, they were all packed ready to go to combat.
Fighter Squadron 83, or VF-83, was an aviation unit of the Navy originally established on the 1st of May, 1944. March 10, 1945, AVG-83 replaced AVG-4 and embarked on board the Essex.
Then we went aboard the Essex, the USS Essex, which was the first big carrier that was built after the war started. It was commissioned in 1942. And that night, we were down on the hangar deck watching a movie, and all of a sudden they sounded general quarters, and there were 2 kamikaze suicide planes, twin-engine planes, come in. One attacked our ship, but he overshot and clipped the radar mast that crashed on the island, and the other one had a glancing glow on the carrier anchored next to us.
Don McPherson's group, AVG-83, went aboard the Essex in Ulithi Harbor in the Caroline Islands. A little over a week after leaving Ulithi, Essex, with the other fast carriers in the group, took part in an attack on the Japanese home islands.
We went on a skirmishing and a rocket mission on the airfield in Kyushu, which is the southernmost island of the big islands of Japan. We got them out of bed, which we hoped to do, and we could see them running, trying to get to their planes and stuff, so that there was no airborne aircraft to be concerned about. So we just picked out targets of opportunity on the ground with this big twin-engine Betty bomber sitting there on the tarmac. So I shot my rockets and I strafed it, and I stayed in my dive long enough to see it explode, and then I was getting low enough I had to pull out pretty fast. And when I pulled out, my engine quit. But then when I got that surge from the engine starting, that power, pulled me back into those. So I went home that first day with holes in my airplane. There was one 20 millimeter that went through the fuselage about a foot behind my back. On the way back to the carrier, it flew kind of funny and not just right, it just didn't handle right. When I landed and pulled forward, then there's always a sailor come out and help you unbuckle and stuff like that. And he crawled up on the wing and he says, "I see you picked up a little lead today." And I said, "Well, where?" And he said, "Well, there's a hole right about a foot behind your back," he said. What had happened then, it had cut the cable that controlled the rudder on the tail surface. So I didn't have any rudder control, so I wasn't flying quite right. But I was probably the luckiest guy in the world. That's the only hole I ever picked up in about 88 missions, so that worked out all right. We were hitting kind of the finish up of Iwo Jima and the Philippines. Both of those were winding down. So we had a few missions, strafing missions and stuff there. But basically then we started hitting the home islands of Japan and also some against Okinawa.
We're ready again for This Is Assault on Your Morale. 75 minutes of music and news for our friends, our enemies in the South Pacific. Well, how are all my little darling little dopes tonight? Full of beer and belligerence? What you need is some good jive. I mean solid. Helps you relax. All set? Okay, here's the first blow at your morale. So tired of singing and singing. Hey, Pop, I don't want to go to work. Please be listening.
Tokyo Rose was the collective name given to English-speaking female broadcasters who spoke directly to our troops in the Pacific over Japanese radio in hopes of demoralizing them. Troops were often frustrated by her inside knowledge of what their attack plans were. But in the case of Air Group 83, it may have been the propagandist who became frustrated.
We kind of had Tokyo Rose confused because she thought that we had two fast carrier task forces when it was just us moving back and forth, Finally, one night she come on then, and they had it figured out finally that they decided it was just one big fleet that was just scooting back and forth.
These hit-and-run attacks were only the beginning, however. Essex and the rest of her group were to be key players in a far more important task beginning April 1st, 1945, Operation Iceberg, the invasion of Okinawa.
Carrier planes go aloft to begin the 9-day bombardment preceding the invasion of Okinawa, large strategic island in the Ryukyu chain. Air attacks leading to landings at Okinawa are unrelenting. Throughout the entire 800-mile island chain, bombers and fighters attack in constant waves.
The battle for the island of Okinawa literally meant life or death on multiple levels. Strategically, the Japanese understood that if they lost the island to the Allies, they would have a base from which they could easily strike the home islands by air. They had to defend it at all cost. The initial invasion of Okinawa on April 1, 1945, was the largest amphibious assault in the Pacific theater of World War II. It lasted 82 days, from April 1st until June 22, 1945. The Allies were planning to use Okinawa, a large island only 340 miles away from mainland Japan, as a base for air operations for a planned invasion.
That was Easter morning. Then they invaded Okinawa, and most of the fighters were carrying napalm bombs, which is a firebomb. So we were scorching the beach, and I've got a picture in our cruise book of all the ships that were lying offshore, bombarding battleships were banging away, on cruisers. They had one big rocket launcher that was shooting, preparing, trying to get the things so that the guys in their landing barges wouldn't get killed,
The human cost of winning Okinawa was horrendous. The battle was one of the bloodiest of the war, with 160,000 plus casualties on both sides, 75,682 Allied and 84,166 Japanese. In addition, 149,425 Okinawans were killed, committed suicide, or went missing, a significant portion of the estimated pre-war 300,000 local population. Many military historians believe that the ferocity of the Japanese resistance on Okinawa led directly to the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Victor Davis Hanson, in his book Ripples of Battle, wrote, quote, "Because the Japanese on Okinawa were so fierce in their defense, even when cut off and without supplies, and because casualties were so appalling, many American strategists looked for an alternative means to subdue mainland Japan other than a direct invasion. This means presented itself with the advent of atomic bombs, which worked admirably in convincing the Japanese to sue for peace unconditionally without American casualties."
They call it kamikaze, meaning the divine tempest. We call them suicide planes.
One day then they ordered our division of 4, Wonder 5, to hit this little airfield on Kikishima. It's a small island. They thought that probably was the base for a lot of these suiciders that were harassing the fleet.
Manned by pilots wearing the ceremonial red sash of the Kamikaze Corps. They specialize in one-way trips. Japan's secret weapon. It was a maniacal, all-out effort to smash our sea power, isolate our troops on Okinawa.
The suiciders were kamikazes, part of the Japanese special attack units of military aviators who initiated suicide attacks against Allied naval vessels in the closing stages of the Pacific Campaign. They were designed to destroy warships more effectively than was possible with conventional air attacks. About 3,862 kamikaze pilots died during the war, and more than 7,000 naval personnel were killed by them.
The Kamikaze Corps was really active. I mean, they were after our fleet like crazy. There was a 10-day period there where the ship's gunners ate and slept practically with their gun mounts, and because there was a bogey on the screen, it seemed like day and night. We went over with rockets and we tore the place up pretty bad and even damaged the runways and some things like that. And on the way back then, why, we probably were only about 1,800 feet off the water or so. And all of a sudden, here was these two dive bombers coming at us on a converging course, but they were real low on the water. I was lucky enough I hadn't put my guns back on safety, and I had some ammunition left, so all I had time to do was just to push the nose down and put my sight on them and squeeze the trigger, and I saw the pilot slump and they crashed into the ocean. Well, then I did a wing over to see what happened to this other one, and it was heading to this field that we had just kind of damaged, then. So I poured full throttle to the Hellcat, and it responded well. And just as I was ready to pull the trigger, normally we were on radio silence, but my policeman was hollering, "Don, get out of there, they're shooting at you from the short batteries." But I squeezed the trigger anyway, and that one exploded. So then I did a lot of evasive maneuvering to get out of there so I didn't get shot down myself. And so that was my first air-to-air kills of the war. Well, by then we got called a lot of times to support our troops. And to me, that was the toughest duty that I ever drew, because they would have some Japanese pocketed up in those mountains and hills and tombs and caves. The only way they could get them out of there would be with flamethrowers, and so that put our guys in such a risk. So they would give us a spot on our grid maps, and we'd come in over one ridge and dive and fire our rockets into those and help them out that way. And the reason I say it was tough, because you had no room for error. But we got by with it, and it was a lot of help to them. It's probably 10 days or more after the invasion of Okinawa, where they had a lot of these destroyer ships of ours were hanging between Okinawa and the southernmost island of Japan as radar pickets. So they sent us over there one day to fly combat air patrol over that. We got over the attack had already started. They estimated now that there's somewhere between 250 and 300 kamikazes, and they were flying everything that would fly. Well, we got into a lower group almost right on the water that flying even float planes, and some of them they claimed that they thought they had a flammable material in the pontoons. So then we started in on those, and my division leader saw what was happening, and why he got on the radio and he said, "Guys, split up and get all of them that you can." I ended up shooting down 3 then, which made me an ace.
Don McPherson became a combat ace, a fighter pilot with 5 or more confirmed victories, on May 5, 1945. The battle for Okinawa ended June 22, 1945.
21 days after the New Mexico experiment, a B-29 was over Hiroshima carrying an atomic bomb.
On August 6, 1945, the first of 2 atomic bombs which effectively ended the war was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan.
We were close enough we got to see the first atomic bomb drop. I was back off of the flight, and they announced on the PA system, so if you look to the west, you see a big measuring cloud in the United States to drop the first atomic bomb. We didn't know there was such, we had never heard of it, but We had put in 90 days of first cruise, and we went into the Philippines so that they could fix up some damaged carriers we'd gotten into a typhoon. And it bent the flight deck on two of the carriers, and it broke about a fifth of the bow off one of the big cruisers. We kind of got a little R&R there, and then we went back out for the next 90 days. So it took us up to the end of the war then. And at the end then, we were almost to an airfield in Tokyo on a strafing mission one morning, and they announced over our radios to swing back over the ocean and jettison our armament that ceasefire had been called. So we did that, and then everybody split up. We were doing loops and Emmelmans and stuff, celebrating. Then the last thing we did then was fly combat air patrol over the signing of the armistice in Tokyo Bay.
The battleship Missouri, 53,000-ton flagship of Admiral Halsey's Third Fleet, becomes the scene of an unforgettable ceremony marking the complete and formal surrender of Japan.
We are gathered here, representatives of the major warring powers, to conclude a solemn agreement whereby peace may be restored.
I earned 3 Distinguished Flying Crosses. They don't give you 3 medals, but they give you a star to put on, and 4 air medals. Presidential Unit Citation was given to us, and of course all the corresponding ones like the Pacific Medal and Victory Medals and those, so there's quite a list of them, but the Air Medal and the Distinguished Flying Cross are the main ones.
In the 2 years since he had enlisted in September of 1942, Don McPherson had seen and done enough for several lifetimes. He'd convinced his mother that despite the perceived danger, he wanted to do his part in an airplane. 11,000 miles from Adams, Nebraska, he fulfilled his rendezvous with destiny. He learned to fly. He became a combat ace. He fought one of the most pivotal and historic battles of the Pacific theater of World War II. He witnessed the dropping of the atomic bomb. He overflew the Japanese surrender in Tokyo Bay. He left the Navy at the end of the war and returned to Adams, Nebraska, a highly decorated combat ace. He has lived there humbly and quietly ever since. In a recent article about him in the local newspaper, the County Veteran Service officer said, Don McPherson returned to become a pillar of the community. Anybody who has grown up here knows him through scouts, baseball, softball, and other things.
We saw so much uniting and so forth with people during World War II. You know, everybody was into the situation, you know, that we had to keep our freedom. And it was just amazing to me, you know, how many airplanes they built in such a short time. That Grumman alone built 240 Hellcats in a month's time in 1943, and people were collecting scrap iron, and they were working 2 jobs, all to give us something to fight with. And I have to admit, I have no complaints with what they gave to me to work with. You know, I don't know if we'll ever see that kind of unity again, but I hope so. One more.